Welcome to the Beyond 3D podcast, where we explore all things 3D and the important role that 3D data plays throughout the manufacturing process, driving decisions throughout a product's lifecycle. Here, we talk with industry analysts, business owners, developers, and industry influencers, and hear real stories that you can relate to and learn from, and know which trends and technologies apply to your business. So join us as we go beyond 3D. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Beyond 3D podcast. We are here today with two very special guests. We have Igor Zinman, president of AMC Bridge, and Boris Shuv, who is executive vice president of AMC Bridge. Welcome, Igor and Boris.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And we also have Dave Opsahl, vice president of corporate development for TechSoft 3D. Hey, Dave.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. So, Igor and Boris, we're really excited to have you. You're our first guest to talk about services specifically. And so, just so that our listeners, I always say readers, our listeners know who AMC Bridge is, if they haven't heard of you already. Tell us a little bit about AMC Bridge and how you guys became really one of the largest service companies in the world.
Well, we are very, very flattered, but we definitely not the biggest service company in general. But in our specific niche where we operate and we servicing engineering software needs of our customers, we're definitely one of the key players. There's always there are big companies in India and around the world who are also doing engineering software development, but among the people who specialize in this area, we're probably the biggest. Yes, it's true. This is by the way, Igor speaking. Mm-hmm. And to tell the truth, it happened a little bit by accident, maybe because of Boris and mine personal history. We started our career in the United States. We both coming from the former Soviet Union. And early 90s, started our career in the United States working for Parametric Technology Corporation, one of the pioneers of the 3D solid modeling and parametric design. And that in turn kind of defined our future path when we started this service company through our connections and our previous experience. We concentrated on engineering software, and that's how it kind of went for the last 15 years. We grew over organically and now running about 300 plus development organization strictly specializing in engineering software. Service and engineering community, both ISVs as well as end users for their software development needs.
And how has the need for services and technical development changed over the years? I mean, 15 years, it's a good run. It's not, a huge stretch of time, but technology has advanced and the industry has advanced so rapidly, even in the last 5 years. How have things changed for you and your customers?
Oh, yeah, it's dramatically changed. I would say the 15 years seems to be 1,000 years in technology terms.
Right.
When we started, the engineering software was equals to CAD software, and that in turn equals to the individual workstation, not even connected to anything but printer. And since then, technology stack expanded dramatically. The engineering software coverage, so to speak, also expanded dramatically from traditional, so to speak, 3D visualization and design to data management, to interoperability, to basically embedded software in manufacturing, to manufacturing management software, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, the technology stack is completely changed. As I mentioned, it used to be just a workstation. Nowadays, it's every possible technology from embedded to still workstations, but mostly connected to cloud and web technology to mobile technology, artificial intelligence. Pretty much any technology that you can find in a modern landscape, you can find in engineering. Among other trends, I would say dramatic expansion of requirements for interoperability integrations, and frankly, expanded application of engineering software from original design to smart cars, let's say smart thermostats, and latest Internet of Things that basically everybody is talking about right now.
Right.
There's also interesting thing that sort of in a historical view. In early days, it appears that the industry was driven by large companies that tend to develop their own software for their own needs. Almost every large manufacturing enterprise had their own CAD department, that they developed their own CAD solution. Then the independent software vendors appeared who took over the development of specialized solutions. And now enterprises license or purchase the high-end software applications. And what seems to be happening now, at least my view, is now the emergence of the component providers seems to be taking a spotlight, and the companies who specialize in particular technological expertise offer component technologies to build solutions like from Lego pieces. It started in modeling, and recently we've heard quite a big push and a lot of conversations on simulation type of components. So I guess that's another evolution of how software is developed, is also take an impact on type of services that we can offer to the development and user communities.
And Dave, it sounds like this is kind of where TechSoft comes in also, right? Is to fill some of these gaps. I'm wondering also if this is a result of, because the technology is evolving so rapidly, the technical development skills of people and the need for those skills, and is there a gap there? And so that's why you now have these like component technologies filling the gap, or other things. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the changes that is affecting AMC Bridge or providing those opportunities are the same things that we see within the ISV community, and you've also seen in the end user community, and that is that the just the baseline technologies. Igor was talking a little bit about functionally where some of those changes have occurred, but if you stop and think about just how much has changed in the last 15 years, if you were writing a graphics application, you used to have to know something about OpenGL and maybe a computing a language and a compiler. Today, you literally have dozens of technologies, and companies are finding it next to impossible to keep up with that kind of complexity. And so there's an overhead cost in training and keeping skills development. And in certain areas like web technology, it's difficult to hang on to people once you get them trained, just because of the demand out there for that. So for us, the components that we build take a lot of the difficult work in certain key areas, but there still needs to be someone familiar with those technologies that can bind them together into a solution for the customer. And so, that's where a relationship like the one that we share with AMC Bridge is extremely valuable for our partners who license those components.
And do you have any examples of customers that are addressing these challenges in a successful way, seeing the need that they have, and that they either don't have the in-house technical capability, so they know that they need to work with, AMC Bridge or TechSoft or another ISV, but then even managing all of that? Do you have an example that you can cite that maybe our listeners can follow?
Yeah, there's one that I think Igor and Boris would agree with me is probably a lighthouse example for us, and that is probably the fastest growing product lifecycle management software company in the world right now is a company called Aris. And they have a solution that is used by medium-sized companies to the largest enterprises like Airbus. And most of their development, I believe, is done by AMC Bridge for exactly the reasons that we've been talking about. So it's definitely something we're seeing more of. But yeah, that's probably. I mean, Igor, would you agree?
Yeah,
Aris
absolutely.
is probably a good example.
Yes, it is a good example, exactly by the reasons we talked about, because Aris has the core expertise in project lifecycle management software but at the same time, this discipline requires modern collaboration tool and modern visualization tool, which they don't have any experience with. And that's where they used TechSoft components for the basic visualization and AMC Bridge as a competent partner to build it all together. So that's a perfect example where the company concentrate on their core business while involving experts in the field when they need to branch into the areas where they don't have expertise. And they save time and money, and the time is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And so Aris is a pretty large company, right? And I'm sure there are going to be some listeners on here that'll say that's great for a company like Aris, but I'm a small guy. How do I tackle the same problem if I don't have the same budget, right? So what would be your advice for some of the smaller guys?
Are you directing that to me?
Or Igor and Boris? Yeah, whoever.
Well, the size of the budget, the size of the budget is definitely important, but to a degree. I mean, if somebody is trying to do it on $500, it's probably impossible. But different size of the project require different level of efforts. But at the same time, we have example of manufacturers who are building their online ordering systems where uploading CAD files could be evaluated automatically, quote produced, and manufacturing ordering could be simplified and expanded dramatically. And as manufacturing companies, they don't have expertise in building such system. So you could draw ROI on speeding up the ordering process and increasing the volume through this system and justify the expense you need to hire qualified resources to build you such a system. And you not necessarily have to be a ISV itself, yourself.
Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, I was going to agree emphatically. I think that that's a big part of the value that we can provide is helping people understand how what they might think is unaffordable is actually something they can easily afford to do. But overall, you also don't have to be a large company. I mean, I think we have between us examples of a couple of companies. I'm thinking of one down in the Bay Area right now that's actually just a relatively small startup. And in some cases, it's even more of a dramatic return for them because there would be almost no way for them to build a solution without our help. It's a question of not, is it cheaper? It's can you even do it? So I think that there's merit in both.
The thing I was going to add is that one thing is component allows to some extent reduce the startup cost since you're using the ready-to-use technology. And also the planning of the solution and the implementation should probably be taken in stages anyway. So defining the minimal viable product that meet the initial budget constraints, also a possibility for a company of any size.
Yep, that's true.
So I have a question. It's kind of a two ways maybe of asking the same type of question. But so on one hand, I was going to ask Igor and Boris, what kind of requests are you getting from your customers specifically in terms of, making software more customized? We can get into some automotive examples, but what kind of requests are you getting from customers? And then the other question that sort of relates to that is the customers are saying, listen, I want to start addressing some of these technology trends and help me figure out where to start, right? Do I start with this process? Do I start with one thing at a time? So I don't know if those questions are one and the same or just related? But, how do you
they're
call
very much related. Yes. Boris, let me start, and you may join in any time. But I think requests from the customers are pretty diverse, but I would summarize it to big groups. And one important group is everybody is afraid, quote unquote, of new technologies and don't want to be left in the dark. And so they're, as you suggested, asking us, how do we take advantage of new technologies? Where can we use them? Or here's what we have a problem is, what technology would you recommend to solve it? And either we tried to solve it 10 years ago, it was too expensive. Is this better now? Do we have better chances of resolving these issues? From another hand, a lot of customers are complaining about, quote unquote, difficulty to use of modern industrial applications. And I mean, it's a pretty common cry, right? To make industrial software more user-friendly, more interoperable, more kind of easily connected to other things. Because in a modern enterprise, especially with mergers and acquisitions and realization that not any software fits all the needs, the diversity of software products on the, so to speak, shopping floor, on the manufacturing floor is enormous. So people want all the pieces to talk with each other and data flowing freely. And another kind of dimension is people want software to be delivered fast. The world is changing fast, and kind of project that takes 3 years to implement and to develop and then implement may miss the mark on the first year, so to speak, because everything is changing. So that's my take on the major driver forces and requirements from the customers. But Boris, you may jump in.
I don't have much to add other than to say that all those items you mentioned, they all in the realm of things that customer asking. Basically, all of the above, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Dave, what about you on your end? What kinds of things are you hearing?
Well, we're hearing the same things. I mean, one of the I guess it's an advantage, but for the three of us that are on the call today, the time that we've been able to watch some of these things unfold has been pretty interesting. And so an effect you see a lot of now is the younger people that are coming into the industry have different expectations about what a good experience is with software, which is exactly what Igor was talking about. And so that is, a dynamic that manufacturing is not accustomed to, of changes that experience has to be, a richer experience. And for us, it opens the door for more use of the components. If you can take an application that has a really poor experience and improve it substantially by, for instance, making it possible to navigate complex data by just looking at an object and manipulating that object on a screen, you've done quite a bit to provide that better experience. And so, for us, it's a good development. It's just manufacturing is now being driven by, the Facebook generation, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But I would just add that component technology actually plays a big role in moving in the right direction, because it saves time on the complex issues that are already taken care of and provides more opportunity of putting a nice interface, responsive and agile interface in front of it, so people have a better experience with the technology, the complex technology underneath. Because in the past, a lot of efforts were devoted to solving complex geometric problems, and user experience and user interface became an afterthought. So it's no longer the case. People demand a good, quote unquote, interface, basically Facebook-like, Apple-like interface, and that still helps them accomplish the as complex tasks that as people before them would like to accomplish.
Just wanted to say we're not sponsored by Apple.
Yes.
That's a good disclaimer.
Igor mentioned something too about people expecting data to flow freely. I mean, that's another place where, the modern use of technology, mobile devices, different web services, there's relatively little appreciation for the fact that, data should flow that freely in manufacturing too. And that's a big challenge. If we can use the component technology to facilitate that interoperability that he's referring to, that's another place where we can impact what that experience is. The data can just move between applications, freely without any concern over its integrity, and that's a big deal as well. So,
and the better experience has a trickle down effect into communication throughout a larger team, right? Where somebody who's maybe not technical but is still on the development team now can better understand whether it's the design intent or the part you're talking about or something like that, right? So,
yeah,
maybe
it's a very good point, and I actually missed it, but you're right on track. A lot of traditional engineering applications are migrating to sales and marketing, to presentation, and so on and so forth. The huge demand for example, online configurators, where people should be able to pre-select and configure what they are buying, for example, lighting fixture, and see exactly in 3D how it would look like, and see it in almost photorealistic view of what they are buying. Again, it's a bit driven by Amazon and what you can do on kind of massively available resources like Amazon and stuff like that. 3D proliferating into the fashion design and so on and so forth.
Right. But even, yes, with massive resources, anything is possible. But I think, as Dave mentioned earlier, there's so many technologies out there now that are making, whether it's turning something 3D or putting something on the web. I mean, all of this is becoming so much more accessible, right? So even the small guys or startups can do this. So.
Yep.
Well, we are coming up on our time, and so I'll just ask you one final thought, Igor and Boris, which is, if you had one piece of advice you'd offer to our listeners or a call to action, what would that be?
I think in our time, with availability of technologies and availability of software, I think everybody should be open to innovate. And even if you didn't do it before, you never had experience with, it should not be a showstopper. I mean, a bit self-surfing people like us or TechSoft or anybody else with good components and good skills could help you out. You should concentrate on your core technology and be open to innovation and new technologies.
I guess Igor was saying that if company doesn't have required resources in-house, it's not a reason not to innovate, because there are component technologists and consulting companies with required expertise who could help. Of course, there is traditional route to build technologies in-house, but with the modern time and age, when the speed, as we spoke earlier, is so fast, the time to market is essential, and that's where components with expert implementation resource, I think, is a solution.
No, I think that's excellent advice. In fact, the saying, I hope it's not too harsh, but the saying "innovate or die" comes to mind when you were talking about that. But it does make me think of one more question that it's kind of a surprise question. It wasn't one that I had posed to you folks before the call, but hopefully it won't be too difficult. With, so let's say a company is just saying, okay, fine, I understand I have to start looking at these tech trends and figure out what I have to do. If out of all the things, cloud, mobile, IoT, 3D printing, AR, VR, like all these tech trends that are swimming around, what would be your advice on start here? If you had to pick one, start here. And then that can, help you test the waters and start to innovate and develop things. So I'll ask all three of you. So Igor, you go first.
Well, my take would be start with your business problem. Start with your business problem, what you try to achieve, and then ask experts to help with the selection of technology. Don't start with the technology. I don't think it's the right approach. But it's fine.
That's fair. That's fair.
I had a similar answer, maybe with a bit different spin. Talk to your users or talk to your prospective users. So you need to solve their problem with your solution. So understand what they need. I guess that's what Igor meant, understand your business problem.
Right.
The beauty of our time that availability of technologies would definitely help you in solving the problem, but don't start with the technology. That's mine.
But then come to us and we'll help you to figure out how to.
Right. Well, we will be including your website in our show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to you,
please.
they'll know exactly where to find you. And Dave, what about you?
Well, I think that's extremely sage advice, and people too often do start with the technology. And I think that what can be an important part of that conversation is, one of the things that we have as TechSoft that AMC Bridge has with the services that they provide is you have this breadth of experience of seeing other people trying to accomplish something probably similar. And so there's a wealth of experience that can be brought to bear on helping understand, what that business problem really is. We shouldn't be just thought of as people that are wise about technology. We've also seen a lot of business problems, and some more successful than others when they're being tackled. And I think so, being open to that conversation with companies like both of ours, I think can help make that a much better outcome when you do start to identify what problem it is you're trying to solve and for who you're trying to solve it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Very sage advice. And so hopefully our listeners will take that to heart. And that wraps up our show for today. So again, Igor and Boris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
No, it's great. And Dave, thanks as always.
It's a pleasure, always.
And thanks everybody out there who was listening today to another episode. If this was your first or second episode and you're still debating whether or not to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, tell your friends and family and colleagues about it. You can subscribe on SoundCloud. You can also subscribe on iTunes. Please leave us a review on iTunes. We would greatly appreciate that as well. And if you have some questions for us or suggestions for topics or guests, you can reach us through our website at techsoft3d.com. And with that, until next time, thanks everybody. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us on the Beyond 3D podcast, hosted by TechSoft 3D. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review, or subscribe on SoundCloud. To listen to past episodes or learn more about TechSoft 3D, visit www.techsoft3d.com/blog. Send us comments and suggestions at info@techsoft3d.com. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you'll join us again on the next episode of Beyond 3D.